since 2003.
I just realized that I forgot to start the recording. So the recording starts now. So that means that Tom and Josh, you guys don't have original lives. We're just going to keep on going. Okay. Let's keep going with Andrew.
All right. I do have a day job. I work in election administration for the province of Ontario. I'm a project manager there. So I've been working in that for ever since I was probably in elections since I was about 16 years old.
Wow. Okay. Politics is a passion of yours?
Kind of fell into it.
Okay.
It's more like a family business. My uncle was doing it and I got a job and then stayed there.
Good enough. Thank you for your efforts. Chris.
Yeah, so I studied marketing and was very interested in sports marketing and ended up starting up some Dragonboat coaching during university and after university. And since then, this is it. This is what I do for work. So
yeah. So maybe something else sports marketing related. You would have always been in the sports world.
I would have hoped that it would have echoed back to sports.
Okay. And Scotty, finally.
Thank you, Mike. Similar to Chris, I'm definitely fully in the Dragonboat profession, mostly coaching and also running events. But going back to high school, I was definitely convinced I was going to be an NHL hockey player.
Perfect, because that's going to come back up.
I was definitely convinced that was going to be my my profession, and that didn't work out. And then my next profession was to do anything related to professional sports, and pursued journalism for a little while, and was actually sports editor in university for a year. And then Dragonboat sort of became my NHL. And there's been many times where I've pretended to hoist the Stanley Cup with whatever cup it was on that particular day.
Wonderful. Let's keep going with the more general questions. Again, more just to get to know each other. So what would you call a guilty pleasure? The guilty pleasure that you're willing to admit to for the greater public. Again, let's go back to Tom.
I would be embarrassed to share how much chocolate I buy and consume. I get the big bulk bags of Valrhona chocolate. I like my high quality chocolate.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask if you're like all kinds of chocolate, or do you have to have like a specific specific?
No, I totally high grade. Yeah.
High grade. Okay. Wait. Quick follow up. You absolutely need chocolate, but all you have access to is a Shoppers Drug Mart. What do you buy?
Oh, probably a Green and Blacks if they had it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Not bad. Oh, a few more people. We'll just let them in. All right. Josh, let's continue with you.
Yeah, I just finished ordering a whole bunch of candy online. I liked the retro candies that I just found through a major distributor in Ontario. So everything that goes back to little garbage pail candies, the fun dip sticks, all different kinds of those old retro candies are a lot of fun, and anything up to Skills or things present day. I really like that kind of candy sweet tooth, and it's a lot of nostalgia. So that's my guilty pleasure.
The fact that you are ordering directly from a distributor really shows to what extent that we're taking this seriously.
Oh yeah, it's a mild obsession. Yeah.
Muff, what about you?
Mine's not food related, so the first one, but I don't have a lot of time at home right now with a baby around, but what's been eating up my free time, I guess could be the guilty pleasure, is playing Dungeons and Dragons with some buddies of mine, which we've been playing since we were young teenagers. So that would be it for now.
All right. What is your most long-lived character?
My most long-lived character, I think I played him for 20 years, was a dwarven barbarian fighter.
Not bad. And Chris?
Yeah, so mine would be every morning reading the Leafs news and Leafs articles before I get out of bed. And it's guilt, and maybe the other one that ties to that is every year thinking that the Leafs are going to win the cup. That's a bit of a guilty pleasure in itself.
Oh, I think you just stole Scotty's.
I'm so ready for you guys. All right, and Scott.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a combination of all of them because I'm definitely have a sweet tooth, and chocolate chip cookies growing up I was very much known to eat a lot of chocolate chip cookies growing up.
Like this was a defining part of who you were.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I can remember Dragonboat camp and Len Minty. He's a great guy, and because we were younger and could keep our fitness no matter what we ate, he had a saying, "Garbage in, muscle out." because he was not impressed with my nutritional habits.
Just unfortunate that for some reason it just doesn't last that special ability,
No, I'm over 40 now. I get it. And like Chris, I will spend copious amounts of time reading hockey stats and trying to convert them to anything that I can convince myself is related to my role as a Dragonboat coach.
I believe to be defined as an addiction, it has to negatively impact your social life. Josh, if you have any additional things you want to add to that, you may.
The definition would be affecting your life or those around you.
So Scott and Chris, are these addictions?
Well, I guess if it's affecting someone else, I'd have to ask my wife. I feel like it's positively affecting the start of my day, but I'm not sure how much that half an hour cuts into our time, if you will.
All right. Finally, last of my general questions for now, before we move on to some more personalized questions. Similar, but not exactly the same. So we went from guilty pleasures. What would you call your greatest extravagance? So again, let's start back at Tom.
Oh, greatest extravagance. Like in what way? Like in terms of what I spend my money on?
That is a common way to interpret that question, but I leave it up to you to decide what constitutes an extravagance.
Well, actually, I guess probably boats. Yeah, I have a rather large and growing collection of boats right now, so that's probably a pretty good extravagance. I have more money invested in boats than I have in my car. And I'm regularly aware of the fact that when I'm transporting boats, the boat on top is worth far more than the vehicle underneath it.
I believe I know that this is a joke amongst cyclists, and I'm sure it's the same for people that are involved with boats. I believe the joke is that the perfect number of bikes you must have is n+1. So whatever you currently have, it's the next number after. I feel like we're getting the same vibes from your canoe thing.
Well, and with paddling, like there's always different disciplines, right? Like you get an OC, and then you want to stir ski, and then you want a marathon canoe, but then you got to have ones for solo and double and everything else. It never ends. All
right, Josh.
I would say my biggest indulgence, or when I get up for it, is to buying a paddle. Got a very nice paddle that haven't been able to use yet this season, which I got last season. And prior to that, was getting a Pukea OC 6 paddle that had a double blend graphite or carbon fiber base and the wooden shaft, and those types of things. I extravagant when it comes down to certain types of equipment for the sports that I do. I will start low, but then it's either go big or go home, and to make it worthwhile. And it also helps me stay enthusiastic that if I invest this much in it, I better do it and do it well.
I feel that you're with the right crowd. Not be judged about any of those.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Oh, I don't know. Like I'm super cheap when it comes to like that and stuff, but I'm a pretty simple guy. So I think my biggest extravagance probably is like
The wine
whiskey.
hanging behind you?
Actually, whiskey. Like I have a dozen odd bottles that I've collected from different places and things like that kicking around. So, and some of them have been cost a fair amount. So yeah.
All right. Chris?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's not really a thing. It's more travel. Like I'm not afraid to travel and maybe like, you know, after a world championships or whatever, spur on a little bit of an extra trip, especially if it's with like, you know, good friends or whatever, people you can share it with, but also alone. Like I'm not afraid to go that route. And I love, you know, if you can spend a little extra and see a lot more, that means a lot to me. There's a lot of value to kind of seeing and learning about different cultures and stuff like that.
I think that a lot of us can relate to that. As those of us who have had the luxury of traveling for international competitions, like I think that's a very common thing to do. So definitely 100% understand you on that one. Scott, finally, greatest extravagance.
Yeah, it's tough being last because these answers are all very good and I can relate to all of them. But I'm gonna because there's definitely a little bit of what everyone said that applies to me. But I'm gonna say time. Because so much of my time and my brain and my energy is related to Dragonboat. So trying to find, trying to not be extravagant in all of the time that I spend related to Dragonboat, trying to unplug and get away is a challenge. So like Chris, I was thinking about travel as my answer because that is the one time where it's usually right after a championship and it's a great time to unplug and not be, I don't want to use the word selfish, but selfish with my time and very immersed in thoughts around our sport.
I think that it's a common thing. Like as a coach myself in Montreal, it's a common thing to feel to feel selfish for allowing yourself to spend time away from the sport. But I remember one paddler telling me that happy coaches are good coaches. So I think if we think of it as a investment in ourselves to make sure that we can continue doing this, then it's absolutely worth it. All right, let's move on to something a little bit more personalized, and I'm going to start with Chris. Now, in case it's not obvious, I am from a visible minority, and I think that I can speak for everybody who is from a visible minority that at some point in their youth, they will be resentful of their uncommon name and wish that they had something normal. But I believe that you are a perfect example of the inverse curse, having a name that is too common.
Exactly.
And so with that in mind, I want to ask you if you are familiar with Bishop Chris Edwards from North Sydney, Australia.
No, definitely not. Not a relative as far as I know. Okay.
But I did my research. Do you know the late Toronto drag queen?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I lived for 10 years about a block from the village. So absolutely, I know Chris Edwards.
Perfect. What about a former BC Lions linebacker, Chris Edwards?
I've heard of him. Never met him.
Okay. Let's move on to former pro rollerblader and founder of the aggressive inline style, Chris Edwards.
Heard of him. Watched some of his work.
Okay. And now I didn't go through the trouble of getting pictures of a pro cricket player, Chris Edwards, or Nevada politician, Chris Edwards, or the bassist for Kasabian, Chris Edwards. But I did find a Chris Edwards that I do want to ask you about. Okay. Former teen model, Chris Edwards.
Yes, I definitely know former team model Chris Edwards.
Tell me more about how his career got started, and I would like you to theorize what would his life look like right now if he didn't get distracted by the desire to paddle on one knee.
Interesting. Well, how it all started. So anyways, there was many moons ago, about 2004, 2005, I was at the unveiling for the Olympic clothing, the gear for one of the upcoming Olympics with HSBC, or the Hudson Bay Company. And when I went to the unveiling, a modeling agency contacted me, Elmer Olsen Modeling Agency out of Toronto, and they asked me if I would be interested in coming down to the studio and chatting with them or whatever. And so, you know, as a young guy, absolutely, I'll come down, see what it's all about. And for a short stint, I did a little bit of work with them, and then eventually realized that paddling shoulders don't fit into sample sizes. So that abruptly ended that career. But where would I have been without following the V in the road that I took and going towards paddling? I have no idea. I'm glad that I chose what I did, and I'm not really sure where I would have ended up. But at a minimum, I definitely would have been in a smaller pant size.
Yeah, I definitely understand that problem. All right, let's move on to Tom, because we're on the topic of what could have been, and I truly regret not being able to find any kind of photographic proof of what I'm about to talk about, and I haven't reached a point yet that I'm gonna ask your family for help in proving this. So I'm just gonna have to go ahead with the information I was given, and hopefully it's good. Tom, where did your athletic prowess abilities first blossom? In which sport? Was it paddling?
I'm guessing I don't know where this question is going. I think you're probably looking to ask about my figure skating career, aren't you?
I am.
Oh, Scotty had to leave. There we go.
I couldn't contain him. I started skating when I was 2 and entered into a figure skating program. The background of that was my dad was a big Bobby Orr fan, and Bobby Orr, of course, learned to figure skate. And my dad would look at how the hockey kids were taught to skate, and they'd start with a chair, they'd get their stick out and they'd be leaning on their stick, and then you take the stick away and they'd be falling flat on their face, and they weren't very good skaters. So he started me in a figure skating program, figuring that I'd switch over to hockey. But every year I had that debate. I was like, is this the year that I switch? But I really enjoyed it. I loved the jumps. I loved the powerful movements. At that time, Scotty Hamilton was a skater on the pro circuit. And if you've ever watched pro skaters, there's the flowery artistic skaters, the Brian Boitanos out there that weren't of much interest, but you watch a Scotty Hamilton, and he was powerful, and he moved, and just his balance and his power and the way he could jump and the way his footwork, it was just always really enticing to me. And so it was a sport. I think I've always been a very competitive person, and that's generally been what's drawn me into sports. But figure skating was something that I just truly enjoyed, and I wasn't, unlike everything else I've done in my life athletically, it wasn't something that I was that terribly competitive at. I just really enjoyed the physical challenge of trying to do it.
I have to ask, if the next time we see each other, and if there happens to be some good ice around, do you think you can still bust out an axle or a loop, or can you do a camel spin for us?
Camel spin, probably not. The spins, I go once every couple of years just to see what I can still do. And the spins, that would take a little more work to get back in, but yeah, I can still do a single axle anyways. And that's always kind of fun to get out and do. Wonderful.
One day I'm gonna need to get some video proof of this, but thank you for sharing that story.
No, you don't. It was the 80s. It didn't look very good.
But Tom can skate better than the Habs, right?
All right.
Shots fired.
My next question is for Andrew, Muffin Man Andrew. Now, unlike our first two, guests, Chris and Tom, I suspect that you lived your youth as a total stud, surrounded by the admiration of women, since you had Dungeons and Dragons
going for you.
But I think even more, it's in large part thanks to your love of the greatest space epic Western that exists, Star Wars.
Damn right.
So on that note, my question is, wait a minute, I'm just gonna make this work.
Oh God.
There you go. Did you buy this for yourself or did Caitlin get it for you?
Oh, Caitlin got that for me.
And
But
how
two things I love together, Lego and Star Wars.
And how much did you squeal when you found out?
Oh, I was super happy. Like, yeah, that was it. We were going away for a week to like rest, and she's like, here's something to do while we're away. And like a day and a half later, I was done.
Now, how, if you had to guess from Caitlin's point of view, how quickly did this go from, oh, you're so cute, you're like a grown man becoming a child again, like in front of your first love. How quickly did we go from that phase to the phase of like, okay, stop shooting the like laser Legos at me?
Pretty quick. I think after I hit her the first time. Like I have like 3 or 4 Lego things, but her family still gets me Star Wars stuff every like.
And you haven't gotten tired of it yet?
Nope.
On brand.
I'm totally happy.
Growing up, did you see yourself as a Han Solo guy or a Luke Skywalker guy?
More of a Luke Skywalker guy.
I was going to ask if you were one of those weird kids that wish he was Chewie or C-3PO.
No.
And what about Luke and not Han?
I always like the I was less of the rogue, more of the hero in my head growing up. And then like Jedi are just really cool.
Now, to be fair, you aren't the only one here who has a publicly documented admiration for the battle between the Jedi and the Sith. So on my next one, I am going to move to Josh. Josh, what do you remember about Comic-Con?
Oh, no. What I remember about Comic-Con was actually the cutest thing was a father and son coming around a corner, and the son was dressed up like a little Jedi, and the father was dressed up like Obi-Wan or something, and the kid stretched out his hand to kind of like imitate like using the Force, and one of the stormtroopers that was dressed up in full gear grabbed his neck and went to his knees like he was being strangled by the Force. That was my fondest memory. I don't think it's going to be the fondest memory that you're going to show, but I think I was standing next to a stormtrooper or something at the time.
Well, amongst the stuff that I was able to find, you said that was the cutest moment, and I do agree that is an incredibly cute story. The cute thing that I was able to find is this, which I have to share, little Ahsoka.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, that's special. Yeah.
But more importantly, I need a debate right now. Josh, this is your drone Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
So between Josh and Andrew, the drone Millennium Falcon versus the Lego Millennium Falcon, which one is cooler?
I like the drone myself. I thought the drone was pretty spectacular for what it can do in the past couple of years. It was pretty cool. Hard to steer, but definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cooler than the Lego. I've got to say it.
Yeah.
Andrew admits defeat.
And there's a future gift for you.
Yeah, totally.
There it is.
Put it on the list.
All right. Scott, I swear to God, it is written in my script. I had suspected that pro hockey player was at one point one of your dreams. And so I'm happy to know that you have already confirmed this for me. Okay.
You're a good profiler.
And indeed, my only source of information to come up with this theory was your, and I quote in my own script, almost blind belief in the Maple Leafs and that it knows no bounds. So what I'd like to ask you, I'm just going to stop this 2 seconds. Okay. What I'd like to ask you is, could you tell us more about the long-standing bet that you have with Matt Robert from 22 Dragons?
Yes, this goes about a decade back, and to a time when, pinching pennies together was kind of like COVID times, like now, where there wasn't much money in the bank account. And Matt Roberts and I, he being a passionate Habs fan and me being a passionate Leafs fan, made a bet that every single time the Leafs play the Habs, we will have a significant amount of money on that game. The exact amount, just to be completely transparent, is currently $75 per game.
Wow. Okay.
And this is great, and it's fun, and you know, in sports, usually things balance out, and you know, one team will win 2 games in a row, and the other team will win 1 game in a row, and whatever. It's a friendly wager. But I will say, there was one year, a few years ago, where the Leafs were the worst team in the NHL, and Carey Price was the best player in the NHL. And our bet is a little bit more complex than just the game. There is hat trick bonuses and shutout bonuses and playoff bonuses and so on and so forth. I don't need to bore you with the details. But that year, this is completely true story. The tally owing from me to Matt was $937 at the end of the year. And it was a proud family vacation that year.
I was gonna ask if this is it, like you pay out at the end of every season, or do you or does this just roll over to infinity, and like we're nobody actually cares about paying, but we just like keep track of the numbers for shits and giggles?
You know Matt Robert?
Okay, yeah, good, fair point.
He is pretty meticulous, and he expects cash and documented with a photo. So he's a pretty meticulous guy. Now he demands those certainly when he's on the winning side of the ledger. But yes, it is fun. It you know what it does aside from all the jokes, it gives a connection to you know, I call people in our sport teammates. It gives me a really good connection to a teammate that's living sort of a parallel life in our sport. It's unique to be an entrepreneur in Dragonboat. So the many phone calls that I make with Matt that inevitably talk about our sport, this gives us a fun banter for the first five or 8 minutes of our phone calls, to banter back and forth and to challenge one another, and then get into our more business category of conversation. Now,
I am going to continue on the hockey theme, but now we can move away from the Habs. Jordan Morgan is my source with regards to this story. Now, I do need to warn you, this might hurt. What kind of emotions does this picture bring back to you?
All right, I know exactly where you're going with this. I know this game very, very well, and I don't know if you know the whole story on this, but what most people know is that the Leafs were winning 4-1 with 9 minutes left in Game 7 of the playoffs against Boston. And you probably have the next picture, because in overtime, Boston scored 3 times in the last 9 minutes. Won it in overtime. That was 2013. And in my house, we were jumping up and down. We were planning who we were going to beat in the next round and the next round. And we were planning which date the Stanley Cup parade was going to be on. And our dreams were crushed shortly thereafter. But I think what you might be pointing at is my connection to my Leafs is certainly a family thing. My dad and I watched many, many games. And 2013, this was the last Maple Leaf game that my dad ever watched. He passed away in August of 2013. So I will be when we do win the cup, I will go celebrate with my dad, and I'll have a beer with him on that day.
That took a twist I was actually not planning on. So first of all, I thank you for sharing a very personal story. And in fact, the angle I was going on was a little bit simpler. Jordan told me that when he found you not long after this crushing blow, he told me that you truly looked inconsolable, like something along the lines of, I believe it's an interview with John Oliver, and he told me, he says in the interview about how when his favorite team like lost a Champions League or something like that, he went and he walked and he did the lap of Central Park 3 times on his own to be able to like find himself again. And I suspect that you were in a very similar kind of mental place when this happened. My follow-up question is, have you ever felt this intensely for anything that happened in Dragonboat?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every race, no. I think, as coaches, our passion is one of our greatest attributes. And that's one thing that I think I have as a skill, is being passionate about what I'm doing, especially in sports. And commit to it, baby, and put your whole heart into it. And you kind of can't lose, because if you lose and it hurts, you still gain from the investment of energy that you put into it.
This is a perfect segue, because I want to return back to a phase of asking some general questions to the entire crowd. Let's go back to Josh. Josh, name me your most memorable race that was not international and not national championships.
Most memorable that was not international?
Exactly. Because I think the international races and the national races, because they're like, these are championships, these are big things, they don't happen very often, they're automatically more emotionally charged. And I think that most people who have the opportunity to race at those levels will automatically default to one of the races there as one that really sticks in their head. But I want to find
take this off the screen anytime, by the way. Thanks for a few minutes.
Hey, I want the best story. So if I need to buy you guys some time, I'm totally down with it. Okay. So oftentimes those races are the ones that really stick in our minds, but there will sometimes be like those hidden stories of like a random race and that didn't really matter in the grand, but for some reason something happened that made it really memorable. So yeah, I want to know, if not Josh and whoever wants to go first, by all means, go ahead. A memorable race that was not international or national championships.
Well, there was a memorable one that happened when I think it was the 4th or 5th iteration of a blind division impaired team, Caravella here with 22 Dragons, was doing a 2000, and we were just finishing crossing the line, and everyone, as you're not supposed to do, puts up their hands in celebration, and then the whole boat keels over as everyone slides left. So the boat goes over, we just crossed the line, and which is kind of spectacular in and of itself. And then you have boats coming in to cross the line behind you, which is kind of stressful with a bunch of people that can't see that well. So that was memorable for how the people in the water responded, how the crews responded. And what was most memorable to me is that the people who couldn't see were actually the most chilled out people compared to the people who could see and were feeling out of their element. So we did well. I mean, we all got up to shore eventually, and by and large, we did well. But that was perhaps the most memorable within memory that I could see. That was a memorable experience, both in how people handle it and the feeling of exhilaration that people had crossing the line, and then all of a sudden emotions changing quite quickly. And then being able to kind of get ourselves back together on shore with the help of everyone, with the race organizers and such. So that's my most memorable memory I could think of. It was noteworthy.
I do remember being a spectator to that race, and indeed, like I almost feel like ignorance is like what you were saying about the people who couldn't see being the calmest. Like I almost feel like this is a ignorance is bliss kind of situation, because the stress level amongst on the shore as we were seeing what was unfurling was quite something. But thank God everything went okay, and everybody came out of it with just an awesome icebreaker to share.
Yeah, and just to put note with in terms of the ignorance factor, I guess so for people that can see. But my thoughts of it were that people who couldn't see or people who had a disability were able to manage change better. There was an ability to adapt to things that are not in your control better, and those that were not in control in that moment, who are usually used to having their faculties, were having a harder time with it. That was my kind of thought process on it.
So well said. So well said. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Let's keep going with, I'm going to go with Andrew. Andrew? You're on mute. Oh, you're on mute. There you go. Okay.
There we go. Sorry, Avery came home, so I just put myself on mute so that you didn't have a baby flying in the background. So my race, I'm between two, and this one I'll go with the one that was I like personally was a little more fun. This was it's probably 2004 or 2005 in North Bay. We were in a race. We had gone up to the North Bay Festival, team called X Paddling from Pickering. And there was another team from Pickering there as well, G&G Electronics. So this was a bunch of X Paddling young, like pretty cocky Dragonboat guys. G&G was a bunch of flatwater paddlers or ex flatwater paddlers. So, and I had a lot of relationships on G&G, even though I was on X Paddling. Bunch of people I had trained with, relatives, all that stuff on G&G. So we're in the final race. And we go, and we're way faster than the field. And G&G is faster than us. We're in the old heavy teak boats. So our steers person is like, well, the only way we're going to win this race is if we ride their wash the whole way down the course. So of course we try. And we go over, we jump on their wash, and they try to get away from us for the entire race. I think we cut across 4 lanes. The two of us in front of everyone else.
This is back in the Wild West days of Dragonboat, where you could get away with kind of something like that.
And like the steers people, it was like Brian Urbanik on ours and John Hollins on G&G, who happens to be my uncle. So we're on their wash, the whole way down, and we start to do our finish, and we're X Paddling as a crew, an amazing finish, like full sprint, 95, 100 strokes a minute. We'd take most crews. So we start to go, and I remember getting the explanation from my uncle after the race, and he was like, well, you guys started to shoot off, and as soon as you guys got momentum, I knew we were dead. So I did the only thing I could do to slow you down. I hit you. So bang, and like there's paddles flying everywhere, and we just kind of float across the line together, them being like a seat ahead of us. But it was just hilarious. Just like, I loved it. It was a fun race, really.
Basically, this is everything that current official Andrew Milner would never allow to happen.
Oh no, the whole reason I got into officiating to start with was to know where the soft spots in the rules are. Like that was the reason. I'm like, oh, I can cheat better if I know the rules well. It just has changed from there till now.
Well said. Chris, memorable local race.
I think one that is like recent that was memorable, because I made the mistake in it, was the Montreal Challenge in 2019 when I was steering the Hammerheads, because everything was going really well and we felt like we were pulling ahead until I wiped out in the back of the boat and was laying flat down with like 150 meters to go while steering the crew. And anyways, I managed to get up and we managed to win the race. But what was cool about it is my teammates, and probably because we won, were super forgiving of the mistake. Usually I'm really hard on everyone and really pushing everyone and driving everyone. And obviously mistakes happen when we're racing and performing, and everyone was really cool about it. In fact, it became almost like the local joke at the club, and everyone was making like memes out of it and stuff like that, you know, like slipped on a banana peel stuff and whatever. You get the idea. But yeah, it was kind of fun. We shared it together, and yeah, it was kind of a fun move. And another like experience that I remember is when I first started coaching my senior women's team many moons ago. We entered a mixed regatta, and there was 3 or 4 guys jumped in, and we worked together as a mixed team, but we had far fewer males than most of the other boats. And I remember winning that regatta by a hair, and everyone's celebrating like crazy. And one of the ladies on our team who is a survivor, she brought her wigs from her process, and we wore the wigs while we raced with the ladies boats and just had a lot of fun with it. But the fact that it turned out really well as well, and everyone had so much fun, it was one of the more memorable regattas. But yeah, just talking about racing brings back the feels.
So first of all, I do think I had seen that picture. I didn't save it, but I do think I saw that picture of Outer Harbor senior women, and there's like randomly there's Andy that's in the picture. So I'm guessing this is what you were referring
that
to.
was the event. Yeah, it was the Mississauga Canoe Club festival. The 200-meter, kind of like a Lachine knockout, kind of similar feel.
And for all of our spectators, if you're not aware, Mission Dragonboat, which organizes a lot of the events in the Montreal area, especially in particular Montreal Challenge, like what Chris was referring to, films the races. I'm not going to help you find the race that Chris is referring to, but I suspect there is video evidence of Chris's banana peel moment. Just putting that out there.
What's interesting is I get up so fast that by the time they pan back, I don't know if you catch it from that view, but there were some people from the grandstand that filmed it, and those ones are brutally obvious. Everyone felt the boat rock and shake, and so what I heard from them is that they just dug down a little deeper. They thought someone maybe slipped off their seat or something, so let's make up for it. And that felt good as a coach, that if I screw up, that they have been trained well enough that they know what to do in that event to try to cover my mistakes even. So I felt really good about it.
I could reinterpret this as some kind of Stockholm syndrome-ish kind of situation where like, no matter what Chris does, it has to be my fault. So like, I just got to work harder.
That's not impossible. Yeah. We'll have to tap into Josh and see if that's the case.
Scott, memorable local race.
Yeah, mine goes way back. I think the year would be 2003, somewhere right around there. And my very first head coaching job in Dragonboat was with RBC Bank. And at the Toronto Island, the Bankers Cup was a huge deal. The evolution of our sport to clubs, the Bankers Cup does not currently have the same prestige that it did back then. And it was, for being on a bank team, this was it. This was your biggest moment of the season. And in our first year, we were maybe more of a pretender than a contender, coming third or fourth. And then this was our second year together. And after qualifying, we were in lane 2, which meant we were probably the 4th seed going into the finals. And we just had a spectacular race, and we won the Bankers Cup. And just knowing that was, you know, what everyone's existence was about and everyone's passion was about. And being young, being in my early 20s, after we crossed the line, I jumped into the water to celebrate. And one of my athletes jumped into the water. It's one of the things that's changed now. I jump into the water less, not never, but less. And I just, that's what came to my mind when you said a non-international race, sort of having that first big victory with the team, the culmination of the journey, is something that I look back on as really, really an exciting moment.
I think back to some of my own stories that feel similar, and I completely understand. I completely concur with how it doesn't matter how small the competition might have been if the feeling of having the entire team committed to the same thing and succeeding, there's feelings don't get better than that. Tom, last but not least, memorable local race.
Yeah, well, one that probably you can relate to, Gorgon Dragons at Alcan. I think it was about 2006. And we had a pretty good team in those days, and we were pretty excited going into the 2K. And we're in the first turn, and of course, big wave comes into the boat, and get down to the second turn, and I knew we were in trouble because I was sitting in seat 5, and seat 2's sandal floated by and hit me in the leg on the way back. And you just kind of, and I think it was the old Geminis, and they were open at the front. It was like an open channel that the dragon heads would fill when they were on, but of course they take the heads off for the 2K. So as the boat started to get heavier in the water and was sitting lower, then it started to be like with each stroke there was like a fire hose worth of water shooting up that channel, hitting seat 1 in the chest at every stroke. Got up to turn 3. And by that point, the boat was so heavy that the oar lock actually broke on the boat as our stern was trying to turn it. I don't know how he kept control. He ended up, Henry was an amazing stern. He just kind of sat down and was able to keep steering just with the oar on its own, even though it wasn't attached to the boat anymore. And yeah, just same thing. It was fighting all the way just to try to get to the finish line in time. And sure enough, just got to the finish line, and as soon as we let it run, it just kind of sank that last inch. And there's a couple great shots of us sitting there with, a couple millimeters of freeboard left on the gunnels, and our drummer, who was scared of the water, standing up as high as she could to stay away from it.
I admit I wasn't sure why you said that I would relate to the story, but now I understand. For the people in the crowd, if you're not aware, look on Facebook for a video of a boat sinking during a 2K with the Titanic theme song playing in the background. You see Andrew's face laughing.
I've seen this a few times, yeah.
If you look for that video on Facebook, it's pretty popular, and yours truly is the one steering that race. It was quite something. I should have let David Maréchal continue to bail, but I thought that I needed him to paddle. There was only 400 meters left. You can stop bailing, and well, I paid the price. But instead of winning, I became a legend because of that. So, in the grand scheme of things, probably worth it. All right, we spent quite a bit of time talking about the Maple Leafs, but as a Montrealer myself, we do need to bring back some balance to the force. So I need to talk to Josh about the Habs.
Mm-hmm.
With this is yourself with wearing a Bellevaux shirt. Is that
yes?
Correct?
Yeah.
So the good thing with age is that you have the luxury of remembering a time when the Habs were good.
Yeah.
What is your earliest memory of being a hockey fan?
Well, being a real avid fan is when they won that last Stanley Cup for the 24th Cup that they won, and being a part of that parade and procession. I don't think I'd been a part of anything that I was attending that was so memorable, and how the city was so alive for something like that. I think that was in 2000. I can't remember the exact date.
Last Stanley Cup for the Habs is 1993.
Yeah, so that was very special, and because I don't think it was expected either. So that was my I was always a fan, but seeing how the city came together and came alive from that experience, that was pretty epic. So yeah. That was probably my earliest memory of something like that.
I'll admit that I am jealous, and because I was alive at the time, but I was too young to remember. I might have been at the parade with my parents, and I can't quite say. So I am jealous that you get to have that memory, and I can't wait for the moment that I will finally be able to live it myself.
Yeah, hang in there.
I do have to ask because for those who don't know, so Josh, you have a degenerative eye disorder.
Yeah.
How do you continue watching hockey or experiencing hockey as your eyesight has diminished? And if you do, it doesn't mean that you've relied more on the radio or listening to the announcers more. How has your experience with hockey changed as the years?
That's a good question. Over the past 5-10 years, it's changed from being more of a visual to being more auditory. So I listen to a lot more games, and I listen to a lot more of the reviews of the people on YouTube or watch summarizing the game, and I get much more into the stats now. I look at it more from a GM perspective than I do perhaps as a player anymore. Mm-hmm. I kind of get into the statistics, perhaps not quite as much as Scott does, but I do really enjoy the statistical aspect of it, which I don't necessarily have to watch each game. It's more of seeing, again, a bigger picture from like maybe a GM perspective, how to manage a team. And so that's how it's changed from a GM perspective, and also listening to it more from the announcer perspective.
Well, hopefully all that time thinking from Marc Bergevin's point of view is going to help you in preparation for your job as a program director.
I like to hope so, and we'll see. Yeah.
Can't wait to see. Chris, your Facebook profile did not reveal to me many hidden fandoms. And so I found this picture, and I guess I could ask you questions about the time that you beat Mark Oldershaw. For people who don't know, 2012 Olympian, silver medalist, okay? And this is you beating him at the now infamous Regina Racecourse. But instead, I want to go with something a little bit more interesting, okay? I'm going to lean on a one-off that I picked up from Alex Tibbles. Okay, I am told that you got into a very heated conversation with Matt Smith in Myrtle Beach regarding the plot of Game of Thrones. So tell me, Chris, are you amongst the people who signed a petition to have season 8 remade?
No, I don't think so. Like, I wasn't overly thrilled, but I think I was satisfied. How does that sound? So, yeah, no.
That makes you officially the first person I know of who has used the word satisfied in season 8 games come together. Yeah,
I think so. It wasn't excellent. Like I'll give it that, but I wouldn't push them to remake it.
If there's one, if you had the power of God and you could snap your fingers, what would be one detail you wish that it would have improved on?
Well, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's watching season 8, right? But yeah, like, I would have hoped that the kingdom would have been burnt down. Like, that was something that I didn't think needed to happen, but I thought all along that was going to happen. I just felt overall there were some things that, didn't line up with where I figured they would go, but maybe that's a good thing. Anyways, yeah, I wouldn't really spoil it for anyone who's about to watch it, but in terms of season 8.
I just watched the last episode like 3 nights ago.
There you go. So I can ruin it for Scott. I can't ruin it for Scott. Sorry.
All right. I'm going to move on to Muff, and you too. Okay, I mean, I've already delved into the world of Star Wars with you, and so like I'm scouring your Facebook trying to find more information about you, and so I pulled out this picture, and like with Chris, I could ask a paddling related question. This is a picture of you at the 24 hours of paddling, and my question would have been, whose bright idea was this?
That's totally Scott. Like, I'll throw him under the bus for that. That is the second time PDBC had done 24 hours of paddling, because why would we want to do it more than once?
And so, okay, well then follow-up question to that is, well, first of all, confirm to me, Andrew, were you part of the first edition?
No, I wasn't actually. I think I was away doing something the first time.
Okay, so this is how you got roped into the second edition. but instead of continuing on this theme, I'd rather ask you some more interesting stuff. So my first question is, do you regret this?
No, not really.
And
I was playing around trying to grow out a beard, so that was what it was.
He meant the Jets shirt.
I thought that was good. It was a deep cut at that point. There weren't any Jets at that point.
And it has that nice retro look too.
Yeah.
But my other question is, I'd like to ask you, who is June Miller and why is she your biggest fan?
That's my mom. Yeah.
For those who are not aware and who have not spent as much time as I have going through Andrew's Facebook, June Miller is an adept social media user who very much enjoys sharing the wonders that the internet has to provide with her son.
Yep, that's my 72-year-old mom sending me things. Yep.
Is maybe this is so I highly suggest all the other Senior C participants to share in this. Clearly, Andrew loves receiving your thoughts on his Facebook wall. So by all means, please continue.
Bring back the goatee.
No, that was enough.
Let's go to Scott. And for you, I'm not going to avoid the paddling topic because I need to share a story now. Let's stop the sharing for 1 second. Okay, I need to share a story with you now. I owe you one. I don't know if you remember this, but when I tried out for the national team in 2009, back when the U24 category was known as the U23 category, you let me and another paddler from Montreal stay over at your place. Do you remember this?
I vaguely, I remember Ben Gerber staying at my house many times. Was Ben part of that?
No, it was me and one paddler from Montreal, and that's it.
And he was Francophone, right?
Yeah.
I remember, yeah.
And what astounded me is that we didn't know each other at the time, and you didn't stay there to supervise us while we stayed at your place. You just basically gave us the keys and said like one guy can use this room and one guy can use this other room, and there you go. I'll be staying over at another person's place, and at the end of the weekend, just leave the keys somewhere and I'll pick them back up. So, I mean, like that was an important part of helping me be part of the national team process at the time. And the 2009 national team is going to be a key moment for myself in basically showing me that I want to continue doing this thing. And well, now here I am. So you were instrumental in this, and I need to thank you for being such a easygoing host.
You have to admit, Michael, I barely remember that. Barely remember it. But the thought that's in my mind, does that sound familiar, Tom Arnold?
It does, yeah.
About 2 years ago, Tom had the exact same experience where he stayed at my place and I wasn't there the entire time.
Yeah, John McQueen and I hanging out.
And now that I think of this is there's a lot of program directors who have spent time at my house for various reasons. There was a premier camp, and the premier program directors stayed at my place. So you know what? Whatever's good for the team.
It shows your dedication to the sport without a doubt. And so since we're speaking about 2009, I mean, not only were you this concept, because I had not really met you yet, that shared his house with us, but you were also coaching a national team all the way back then, the junior national team. And so what I'd like to ask you, give me 1 second, is what does this picture spur for you?
Oh, yes. This is a great picture. I remember this race very, very vividly. And I was in charge of the junior men that week. I was the steers person for the junior men, and we had a phenomenal week of racing. The field was so well matched that in our 1,000 meter race, we all crossed the line, and in Prague you look up and the times would all post on the major, like think of the Montreal scoreboard, and all 6 teams, this isn't this race, this is my preamble, all 6 teams had a time of 4:20 point something. But throughout the week and all of the distances, we didn't win. We came second or third or fourth until we got to the 500 meter. And this is the conclusion of our 500 meter race. And it was just one of those races where everything clicked. And I won't tell you what lane we were in for this race.
As a participant of the 2009 World Championships, I know what you're referring to, and that's totally fine. I need to point out, in case that it's not obvious in the picture, this is not only the junior national team winning the race, but winning by a margin that's so big that you don't need the photo finish. And as a racer, I strive for, I coach my team towards that concept. Like, we don't only want to win, it's no photo finish. I want to be able to cross the finish line and not have to wait for the website to reload to know that I have that gold medal. And this is an awesome picture of what happens when you succeed in doing that. The raw emotion is just palpable. So yeah, no, I needed to know how it felt for somebody that was directly in it. So thank you for sharing that story.
And if you ever get the chance, I mean, every age group is special in every way, and every gender crew is special in every way. But U18 boys bring a special amount of excitement and exuberance to what they're doing, and you know, and you can see it. It's really vivid there. So I do remember this week fondly just through this picture, you know, really bonding with that group of 17, 18-year-olds in a week-long competition.
Thank you for that. I have already written in the chat room that if anybody has something that they'd like to ask, you can type it up in the chat room. This is the end of my line of questions. So either you can go with using the Zoom reactions and raising your hand, so I can open up the mute, like unmute you, and if you want to ask any questions directly, or if not, you can just type it in the chat room, and then I'll ask for you. But if otherwise, I am at the end of my list of questions. So we'll just give it a few minutes and see if anybody has anything that they'd like to ask.
In the meantime, Tom, I was very impressed at your calmness while thinking through those questions in the 007, man. My brain does not work as calmly as yours does.
Either that or Tom has very strong opinions that were already cemented and ready for this kind of question.
I think it was more of a relief. I was more concerned about where the questions could go. So when it veered, you know, when it was just movie questions, that I was good.
No, I'm not trying to grill you with for trivia, because trivia just all it teaches me is that you know James Bond far too well. No, I want to use James Bond as a vehicle to learn more about Tom the man. And what I understood is that you have a deep respect for the classics, but you're still able to appreciate the new direction that we now have with Daniel Craig.
Hopefully that new one gets released at some point.
Oh,
keeps getting
yes.
pushed back.
The latest the newest villain with Rami Malek, what's his name? Rami Malek. It's looking very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a few fan theories that are saying that he might be like a rehashed Dr. No.
Oh.
But for now, it's just a fan theory. All right. Okay. No questions are coming in. Nobody's raising their hands. So I'm guessing that it will be it. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and your stories. I have to give a quick thank you to Calvin Cheng, who helped me with creating the presentation. And I have to give a thank you to all of our viewers for being there and for being part of this national team. Hopefully we get to see each other very soon on the water at best. It would be ideal. But either way, just being able to see each other again and feeling the community that Dragonboat is one more time is what we're all hoping for. So on that note, this is Michael Wu signing off.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, Mike.